Hi friends, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you my top 10 shades to help me transition from summer to fall. So as you might know, I am a big seasonal wearer through and through. You probably remember my summer favorites video from a few months ago, and as you can see, I usually skew towards the very bright, if not neon kind of shades in the summer, or at least in the early summer. But every August, I feel like I always gravitate towards these kind of shades that I feel like I can only describe as brighter jewel tone colors, where to me, they still feel summery, but they're not as light and bright as what I usually gravitate to, but they're still a little too saturated for what I normally go for in the fall, which is like really deep vampy colors. And speaking of fall, I was loosely inspired by Orly's fall collection this year because I just saw that lineup and was like, oh my gosh, it is just giving such late summer transitional vibes. I was super tempted to pick it up, but I figured I could just kind of like shop my stash in a way and make my own version of that collection. Obviously, this is a little bit bigger than that, but yeah, let me just show you my picks. The first polish I have is Hearth Jelly from Cirque colors, and this one actually came out in January of this year, and I remember immediately thinking I was going to love this one around this time of year. As you might know, I love jellies, especially in the summertime. I just think they're so colorful and juicy and fun, but this one obviously has a little bit more of a muted, almost terracotta kind of color, which is the exact kind of color that I love to wear in the fall. So it's just such a beautiful blend of what I love about each season. Next up I have Potion Polish's Painted Sky at Dusk, and this I feel like is a liquid sunset in a bottle. It has this almost magenta berry kind of base color that's definitely kind of hard to tell underneath all of that glowy shimmer. I remember being so blown away by this one the first time that I tried it last year after I first picked it up. Just the first swipe alone had me so mesmerized. Again, it really just reminds me of a beautiful summer sunset. The formula on this was just so lovely, built up perfectly opaque in 2 coats, and even the name for this one is so perfect. This next shade is ILNP's Sundown, which I know I just shared recently in my August picks video, but it's just so good I had to share it again. Kind of similar to the last polish, I think the name of this one is just so fitting for this time of year as we transition from one season into the next, and the color is just so stunning too, with this glistening, peachy, golden shimmer. This one actually came out a couple of years ago in ILNP's second summer collection, which was called Golden Hour, so they definitely nailed the late summer vibes. The formula on this one is super lovely too. I really love this one, especially in 1 coat, just for a sheer wash of color. Zoya's Honey might be familiar if you've been following my channel since the beginning, which has only been like 2.5 years at this point, but it was included in my very first summer to fall transitional favorites video, but I did also feature it in my fall favorites video last year. This is like the yellow shade that I just come back to year after year, since it's this beautifully warm, almost marigold kind of yellow. It is just such a staple in my collection, and I can't recommend it enough, especially if, like me, you're pretty picky with the typical fall mustard yellows. This next shade is one of the brightest in the bunch. This is ILNP's Retro Teal from last year's Arcade collection in the early summer. And this one definitely gives me the most similar vibes to that bright teal from Orly's fall collection. Once I saw that shade, I was like, okay, I need to try to dupe it out with my own collection. This kind of teal is like the epitome of a transitional shade for me, since it's just too dark compared to other teals that I like to wear in the early summer months, but it's also just too bright for what I really gravitate to in the fall. I know it might sound silly, but that's just how my brain works. When I see this color, I immediately think of August. Next up, I have Virgo from Ave, and this is an absolutely perfect jewel-toned blurple in a 1 coat formula. I just love everything about this polish. It is just so fantastic, and again, the name for this one is also perfect since it is just the epitome of going from summer to fall. Okay, so I think this is the brightest from my lineup. This is Cirque's Blushing Queens, which is like this really bold but deep raspberry shade. I feel like it's picking up even brighter on camera, so just imagine this a little bit deeper. Just like the other shades, I feel like this has such perfect late summer vibes, where it's a darker and more slightly muted hot pink. And as a certified pink lover, you know that I have to have a pink for every occasion. You might also remember me sharing this somewhat recently in my best polishes for July video, where I shared this as an alternative to a ruby red for just a slightly different take on the traditional birthstone. I actually have another pink, and this is Ave Radiance from last year's Sunset collection. So I really do love that Ave does seasonal collections, but last year I was sadly not feeling this release since, as the name suggests, it was filled with deeper sunsetty colors, but at the time that it released, I feel like it was early in the season where I'm normally craving the brighter shades, the neons. So I do appreciate that Walker was looking ahead with this collection and not focusing on just the early summer vibes. But even back then, I knew that I was gonna love this color and especially love it in August, and here we are. Then I have another somewhat bright shade. This is Color Department's Grape Soda, which is this pretty bright, mid-tone, sort of red-leaning purple. I actually included this one in my very first summer favorites video on my channel just a few years ago. I feel like this toes the line between it being just a regular summer kind of color, but I don't know, I usually just don't wear a lot of purples in the summer, and if anything, I gravitate more towards the super dark vampy ones in the fall, so a color like this just screams late summer to me. And last but certainly not least, I have ILNP's Hidden Treasure. This one actually came out in the Under the Sea collection just last year, and even though this was their second summer release, I remember thinking it should have released earlier, but this purple is even deeper than the last one. I ended up just doing 2 coats for this one, but you could do a third and deepen the color even more. Either way, I feel like this one is the most jewel tone kind of color, but it's just brightened up so much by those glowing golden flakes. It is absolutely stunning. And of course, here is the collage. I just love this color palette so much. Not to sound like a broken record, but it really does invoke all of those late summer sunset kind of vibes where you still just feel the summer heat, but the colors are starting to get a little bit darker. So that wraps up my best summer to fall transitional shades. As always, I would love to know your thoughts on these and whether you would classify them as just summer colors, or if you're like me and would consider them like perfect for this in-between time. Because like I've mentioned before, August to me is very much a summer month. I know we start to see a lot of fall collections releasing around this time of year, and I always say it's too early. I still am very much enjoying summer, but I do notice that every August I end up gravitating towards these like deeper sort of shades, even though I just never seem to include them in my summer favorites videos. I guess for this year, maybe the closest one would be Holo Taco's Hot Take, where it just kind of sticks out the most. And to be completely honest, I haven't done a full mani with it yet, so I was kind of like ahead of myself with including it in my summer favorites wheel, but I feel like it would just be so perfect to fit in with this lineup. But yeah, either way, I just had so much fun putting this lineup together. Again, I really loved that Orly fall collection, even though I wouldn't really consider it like fall. It just served as the perfect inspiration to just kind of curate this transitional palette. I don't know how many of you guys remember, but I first did this video 2 years ago on my channel. It was one of my very early seasonal favorites kind of videos, and it was my first time doing a transitional favorites, and I just love the idea of it so much and wanted to do it again, but then then I never did. To be fair, the only other big transitional season for me at least is going from winter to spring. For whatever reason, I just don't get the same kind of inspiration maybe to have this like separate curated palette going from fall to winter or spring to summer. I don't know if it makes sense, but I feel like those groups of seasons just feel like a lot closer together. So I don't know, in my mind at least, it makes sense that these brighter, hotter kind of seasons would need a transitional palette to go into those darker, cooler kind of months. Obviously though, nail polish is nail polish, wear whatever you want, whenever you want. I'm just trying to explain how my brain works and how I like associate colors with the time of the year. Being like this makes it so much harder because it's like, oh, I can only enjoy this color during a certain time of year, but I don't know, it is what it is, right? So either way, I hope that you enjoyed seeing my lineup. Let me know if you also love these types of brighter jewel tone shades this time of year. Let me know what you think of Orly's fall collection, because again, personally, I think it's a little too bright to be considered like a true fall release, but it's still absolutely gorgeous and just so perfect for being released in August. Make sure to let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!